The fire fell from the sky like rain. Ambassador Lyra pressed her thin blue fingers against the cold glass of her office window. Outside, the beautiful silver towers of Villani Prime burned. Ships shaped like black claws descended through the clouds, dropping bombs that turned everything to ash. Her people ran through the streets below. Some carried children. Some carried nothing at all. They simply ran because running was all they could do. The Krath had come without warning. One moment, the skies were peaceful. The next moment, death arrived. Lyra turned away from the window. Her heart beat fast inside her chest. The Villani were a peaceful species. They had no weapons. They had no soldiers. For 10,000 years, they had lived in harmony, creating art and music and beautiful things. They believed that kindness was the greatest strength in the universe. The Krath believed differently. A young assistant burst through the door. His name was Pulo, and his pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear. Ambassador, the eastern cities have fallen. The Krath ground forces are moving toward the capital. Lyra closed her large dark eyes. How long do we have? Perhaps 3 days. Maybe less. 3 days. 3 days until everything her people had built would be destroyed. 3 days until the Krath would enslave every Villani who survived. She had seen what the Krath did to conquered worlds. They took the weak and made them work until they died. They took the strong and forced them to fight in their armies. They showed no mercy because they did not understand what mercy meant. Have any of the council species responded to our distress call? Lyra asked. Pulo shook his head slowly. The Torhan Collective says they cannot risk war with the Krath Empire. The Milari Federation sends their sympathy, but no ships. The Gorvax Union pretends they did not receive our message. Lyra felt something cold settle in her stomach. The galaxy was watching her people die, and no one wanted to help. The Krath were too powerful. The Krath were too dangerous. Everyone was afraid. There must be someone, she whispered. Pulo hesitated. He looked at the floor, then at the ceiling, then finally at Lyra. There is one species that responded. But Ambassador, I do not think we should consider them. Who? Who? The humans. From the planet called Earth. Lyra frowned. She had heard stories about humans. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories about humans. They came from a world that should have killed them. Their planet had poisonous air, crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, and dangerous predators. Yet somehow, humans had survived. Somehow, they had thrived. Somehow, they had become one of the most feared species in the known universe. They called them Deathworlders. What did the humans say? Lyra asked carefully. Pulo pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A voice filled the room. It was deep and strong and spoke in the common galactic language with a strange accent. This is Admiral Kang of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal. We are coming. Hold on. That was all. No long speeches, no discussions about politics or payment, just 3 simple sentences and a promise. Lyra stared at the device. How far away are they? Their nearest fleet is in the Orion sector. At maximum speed they could arrive in 6 days. We will be dead in 3. Yes, Ambassador. Lyra walked back to the window. The fires were spreading now. She could see Krath soldiers moving through the streets, kicking down doors and dragging people from their homes. A mother screamed as they took her children. An old man fell when they pushed him to the ground. The Krath laughed at their suffering. Something changed inside Lyra in that moment. She had always believed in peace. She had always believed that violence was never the answer. But watching her people suffer, watching the Krath hurt innocent lives for no reason except cruelty, she felt something new growing in her heart. Anger. Send a message back to the humans, she said quietly. Ambassador, tell them what is happening here. Tell them about the children being taken. Tell them about the cities burning. Tell them everything. Pulo nodded and hurried away. Lyra did not know if the humans would arrive in time. She did not know if they could defeat the Krath. She did not even know if she could trust them. Humans were dangerous. Everyone said so. They fought wars for strange reasons. They formed emotional bonds with other species. They had a strange concept called justice that made them do unpredictable things. But right now, dangerous was exactly what she needed. 300 light-years away, Admiral Kang read the new message from Valani Prime. He was an older man with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He had fought in many battles. He had seen many terrible things, but as he read about the Krath taking children from their mothers, his hands began to shake. Not from fear, from something else entirely. "Captain Taeho," he said into his communicator. "Report to the command center immediately." Taeho arrived within minutes. He was younger than the admiral, with sharp eyes and a calm face. He commanded the warship Indomitable, one of the most powerful vessels in the human fleet. "Sir?" Admiral Kang handed him the message. Taeho read it. His expression did not change, but his jaw tightened. "The Valani say they have 3 days before the capital falls," Kang said. "We need 6 days to reach them at maximum speed. Then we need to go faster than maximum speed. The engines cannot handle it. Then we push them until they break." Taeho looked at his admiral. "Sir, those are children. Innocent children being taken by monsters. I will not let that happen. I cannot let that happen." Kang studied the young captain's face. He saw determination there. He saw fury. He saw something that humans had carried with them since the beginning of their existence. A fire that burned when the weak were hurt. A rage that woke when the innocent suffered. "Assemble the fleet," Kang said finally. "Every ship that can fly, every soldier that can fight. We leave in 1 hour." Taeho saluted and turned to go. "Captain," Kang called after him. "The Krath Empire has never lost a war. They have conquered 50 worlds. They believe they cannot be defeated." Taeho paused at the door. A small, cold smile crossed his face. "They have never fought Deathworlders. On Valani Prime, the fires continued to burn. The Krath continued their destruction. Ambassador Lyra continued to watch and wait and hope. She did not know that across the stars, a storm was coming. A storm made of steel and fire and human fury. A storm that would shake the galaxy to its core. The humans were coming, and they were angry. The warship Indomitable hummed with energy as it prepared for departure. Captain Taeho stood on the bridge, watching his crew work with quick, practiced movements. Every person knew their job. Every person understood what was at stake. "Engine status?" he asked. His chief engineer, a woman named Su Min, spoke through the communicator. Her voice was tired but determined. "Sir, I have pushed the reactors beyond safe limits. We can maintain 120% power for approximately 4 days before something breaks. Can you give me 130? There was a pause. "I can try. But Captain, if the engines fail in deep space, we will all die." Taeho nodded slowly. "Understood. Do what you can." He turned to look at the main screen. 47 human warships floated in formation around the Indomitable. Each one was a weapon of incredible power. Each one was crewed by men and women who had volunteered for this mission without hesitation. The message from Valani Prime had spread quickly through the fleet. Everyone had read about the children being taken. Everyone had seen the images of burning cities, and everyone had felt the same thing that Taeho felt, a burning need to help. Combat medic Yuna entered the bridge carrying a tablet. She was small, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "Captain, medical teams are ready. I have converted Cargo Base 7 into an emergency hospital. We can treat up to 300 wounded. The Valani are not built like us," Taeho reminded her. "Their biology is different." "I know. I studied their medical files during the night. I did not sleep." She smiled slightly. "Sleep can wait." Weapons Officer Dong Hyun looked up from his console. He was a large man with hands that seemed too big for the delicate controls he operated. "Captain, all weapons are loaded and ready. Missiles, railguns, plasma cannons. Everything. Good. What do we know about Krath ships?" Dong Hyun's expression darkened. "Their ships are fast and carry heavy armor. Their weapons are designed to cause maximum damage and maximum fear. They like to make their enemies suffer before they die. Weaknesses: their shields are strong on the front but weak on the sides. They fight in straight lines because they believe superior numbers will always win. They do not expect their enemies to be creative. Tejo smiled thinly. Then we will be very creative. The ship shuddered as the engines roared to life. Stars began to streak past the windows as the Indomitable jumped into faster-than-light travel. The other 46 ships followed close behind. In the crew quarters below, soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their weapons and armor. They said goodbye to friends and family through video messages. Some prayed. Some simply sat in silence, thinking about what was coming. Private J1 was 22 years old. He had joined the military because he wanted to protect people. Now, for the first time, he was going to fight a real war. His hands shook as he loaded his rifle. An older soldier sat down beside him. Her name was Sergeant Hana, and she had fought in 3 campaigns before this one. She had scars on her arms and a calmness in her eyes that came from experience. "First battle?" she asked. J1 nodded. "Is it always this scary?" "Always. The fear never goes away. But let me tell you something." She leaned closer. "Being afraid means you understand what is at stake. Only fools feel no fear. The brave ones are those who feel the fear and fight anyway. What if I freeze? What if I cannot do my job?" Hana put a hand on his shoulder. "Think about why we are going. Think about those children. Think about their parents watching them being taken away. When you feel like freezing, remember them. Let your anger be stronger than your fear." Jaewon took a deep breath. "I will try. That is all anyone can do." Back on the bridge, Tejo received a communication from Admiral Kang. The older man's face appeared on a small screen, looking tired but determined. "Captain, I have received reports from our scouts. The Krath have approximately 200 warships in orbit around Villani Prime. We have 47. 2023. Those are difficult numbers, sir. I know. The Council species are watching us. They believe we are flying to our deaths. The Torhan ambassador actually laughed when he heard about our mission. He said humans were brave but stupid." Tejo felt his jaw tighten. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that humans have a saying. Those who stand by and watch evil happen are no better than those who commit it." Kang's eyes hardened. "We do not stand by. We never have. We never will, sir." "Permission to speak freely." 7. "Granted. I do not care if we die on this mission. I do not care if we fail. What matters is that we try. What matters is that those people on Villani Prime know that someone heard their cry for help. That someone cared enough to come." Kang nodded slowly. "That is exactly why I chose you for this mission, Captain. You understand what it means to be human." The communication ended. Yuna approached Tejo with a fresh cup of coffee. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot during long hours on the bridge. "Captain, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do we do this? The Villani are strangers. We owe them nothing. Why risk our lives for people we have never met?" Tejo took the coffee and thought carefully before answering. "When I was a child, my village was destroyed by a flood. My family lost everything. We had no food, no shelter, no hope. Then strangers came. People we had never met. They brought food and blankets and medicine. They helped us rebuild our home. When I asked one of them why, do you know what he said?" "What?" he said. "Because you needed help, and I was able to give it. That is all. That is the only reason that matters." Tejo looked out at the stars. "Someone out there is suffering. We are able to help. So we help. That is what humans do." Yuna smiled softly. "That is a good answer." The fleet continued through space, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. Some ships developed problems. Some fell behind. But none turned back. Every crew, every soldier, every person understood the mission. In the darkness between stars, the Krath had no idea what was coming. They continued their invasion of Villani Prime with complete confidence. They had conquered 50 worlds. They had never lost a battle. They believed themselves invincible. They had never met humans before. On the second day of the journey, Teho gathered his senior officers in the meeting room. A holographic map of Valani Prime floated above the table. Red dots marked Krath positions. Blue dots marked remaining Valani settlements. The Krath fleet is positioned here, in standard formation around the planet, Donghyun explained. Their flagship, the Devourer, commands from the center. If we destroy it, their command structure will fall apart. How do we reach the flagship when we are outnumbered 4-1? Yuna asked. Teho studied the map. His mind worked through possibilities, discarding bad ideas and keeping good ones. Finally, he smiled. We do something the Krath would never expect. What is that, sir? We make them angry. The officers exchanged confused looks. Teho pointed at the map. The Krath fight with logic, numbers, superior firepower. They do not understand emotion. They do not understand pride. But everyone has weaknesses, even the Krath. We find their pride, and we hurt it. We make them so angry that they make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, we strike. Hana grinned. I like this plan. I thought you might. The fleet flew on, carrying with it the fury of 1,000 suns. The Valani people did not know it yet. But their salvation was coming, and it was coming fast. The Krath commander stood on the bridge of the Devourer and smiled with satisfaction. His name was Warlord Greth, and he had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire. Valani Prime was supposed to be his easiest victory yet. The Valani were weak. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no will to fight. They simply surrendered and cried as his troops took everything they wanted. It was almost disappointing how easy this invasion had been. Warlord, our sensors detect ships approaching from the outer system. Greth turned to his officer with mild curiosity. Council ships? Have those cowards finally decided to interfere? No, Warlord. The signatures are unknown. We have never encountered this type of vessel before. Show me. The main screen changed to display the approaching fleet. Greth counted the ships. 47 vessels, much smaller than his own. They flew in tight formation, moving faster than any ships he had seen before. What species are they? Our database identifies them as humans, Warlord. From a planet called Earth. Greth laughed. He had heard stories about humans, mammals from a harsh world who thought they were warriors. But they were nothing compared to the Krath. They were soft inside. They let emotions control them. They formed silly attachments to weaker species. Open a communication channel. I want to speak with these humans. The screen flickered, and Captain Teho appeared. His face was calm, his eyes steady. Behind him, Greth could see a bridge filled with crew members working at their stations. Human Commander, Greth said with amusement. I am Warlord Greth of the Krath Empire. You are interfering with an official military operation. Leave now, and I will let you live. Teho did not blink. I am Captain Teho of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are committing crimes against innocent people. Withdraw your forces from Valani Prime immediately, or we will remove them by force. Greth's officers laughed at this. The warlord smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. You have 47 ships. I have 200. You cannot win this battle, human. Why do you throw away your lives for creatures that are not even your own kind? Because they asked for help. That is it? They asked. So you came? Yes. Greth shook his head in disbelief. You are fools. Brave fools, perhaps. But fools nonetheless. I will give you one final chance to retreat. Take it, and live. Stay, and die. Teho leaned forward slightly. His voice remained calm. But something cold entered his eyes. Warlord, I want you to understand something. We know we are outnumbered. We know we might die today. We do not care. Down on that planet, your soldiers are taking children from their parents. They are destroying families. They are causing suffering for no reason except cruelty. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was hard as steel. We call that evil. And humans have a tradition. When we see evil, we do not look away. We do not make excuses. We do not calculate the odds. We fight. We fight with everything we have, until the evil is destroyed or we are dead. There is no middle ground. Greth felt something strange. For just a moment, looking into the human's eyes, he felt uncomfortable. But he pushed the feeling away. Then you will die today, human, perhaps. But we will take many of you with us. And others will come after us. And more after them. You cannot kill all of humanity, warlord. You can only make us angrier. The communication ended. Greth stared at the blank screen. His officers were quiet now. The laughter had stopped. Battle formation, Greth ordered. Destroy them. 200 Krath warships turned to face the approaching human fleet. They arranged themselves in the traditional Krath attack pattern. Lines of ships, stacked in rows, ready to crush the enemy with overwhelming firepower. On the Indomitable, Taeho watched the Krath formation and smiled. They are doing exactly what we expected. Donghyun's fingers moved across his weapons console. All ships report ready, Captain. 7. Then let us begin. Execute attack pattern Omega 7. The human fleet did something unexpected. Instead of attacking head-on, they split into 7 smaller groups. Each group curved away in different directions, flying in spirals and loops that seemed almost random. Greeth stared at his tactical display in confusion. What are they doing? This makes no sense. They appear to be playing. Warlord. Playing? The human ships danced around the edges of the Krath formation, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. They fired quick shots, and then disappeared. They appeared behind ships and vanished before return fire could reach them. It was chaos. Beautiful, controlled chaos. Fire! Greth shouted. All ships, fire at will. The Krath fleet unleashed a massive barrage. Thousands of weapons discharged at once. But the human ships were not where the weapons were aimed. They had already moved. They were always moving. One human ship, a small destroyer, flew directly at a Krath battleship. It seemed like a suicide run. But at the last moment, it turned sharply, skimming along the battleship's side. Its weapons fired continuously, targeting the weak spots in the armor that Donghyun had identified. The Krath battleship exploded. Greth watched in shock as 3 more of his ships died in the next minute, then 5 more. The humans were everywhere, and nowhere at the same time. How are they doing this? He demanded. Their ships are faster than ours, warlord. And their pilots are unpredictable. On the Indomitable, Yuna monitored the battle while coordinating rescue operations. Captain, the Krath ships near the planet's surface are pulling back to join the fleet. Good. That gives our landing parties a window. Sergeant Hana stood in the transport ship with her squad. Private J1 was beside her, his face pale but determined. Through the window, she could see the battle raging in space. Explosions bloomed like flowers against the stars. Remember your training, she told her soldiers. Move fast, stay together, and protect the civilians. That is our mission. The Navy will handle the Krath fleet. We handle the ground. The transport ship shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Fire burned around them as they descended. Below, the surface of Valani Prime grew larger and larger. Approaching landing zone, the pilot announced. Heavy enemy presence detected. Hana loaded her weapon. Then we give them something to think about. All soldiers, prepare for combat drop. In space, Taeho made his move. While the Krath were distracted by the smaller ships, he led the Indomitable and 10 other heavy cruisers directly toward the Devourer. Greth saw them coming too late. They tricked us. All ships, protect the flagship, but the human pilots had learned their patterns. They anticipated where the Krath ships would move, and were already there. Blocking their path with fire and missiles, the Indomitable reached the Devourer. Donghyun did not hesitate, firing all weapons. Every gun on the ship discharged at once. Missiles, plasma bolts, railgun projectiles. They slammed into the Devourer's shields with enough force to move a moon. The shields flickered, then failed. The second barrage hit the hull directly. Metal tore apart. Explosions ripped through the great warship. On the bridge, Greth fell as the deck shook beneath him. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We are the Krath. We do not lose." The Devourer began to break apart. Escape pods launched in all directions. Greth watched his beautiful ship die around him and could not understand how this had happened. How had 47 ships defeated 200? In his final moments, as fire consumed the bridge, he remembered the human captain's eyes. He remembered the cold determination he had seen there. And finally, too late, he understood. The humans had not come to win a battle. They had come to deliver justice. And against that kind of fury, numbers meant nothing. The Krath fleet scattered. Without their flagship, without their warlord, they had no coordination. Human ships hunted them down one by one. Some surrendered. Most tried to flee. Few escaped. On the surface of Valani Prime, the transport ships landed. Sergeant Hana led her squad out into a burning city, ready to fight for people she had never met. The battle was not over yet, but the tide had turned. The city of Valora had been beautiful once. Ambassador Lyra had walked its streets many times, admiring the silver towers and the gardens that bloomed with purple flowers. Now those towers were broken, the gardens were ash, and Krath soldiers patrolled every corner, looking for survivors to capture. Sergeant Hana moved through the ruins with her squad. 20 soldiers, each one trained for exactly this kind of mission. They communicated with hand signals, staying silent as they approached the first enemy checkpoint. Private J1 crouched behind a fallen pillar. His heart pounded so loud he was sure the Krath could hear it. But he remembered what Hana had told him. He remembered why they were here, and he pushed his fear down deep inside. A Krath guard stood at the checkpoint, tall and armored, with a weapon that could kill a human with a single shot. The guard was looking the wrong way. Hana gave the signal. 2 soldiers moved like shadows. They were on the guard before he could react. One moment the Krath was standing. The next moment he was on the ground, silent and still. "Move," Hana whispered. The squad advanced through the checkpoint and into the city proper. The streets were empty, but they could hear sounds in the distance. Screams, crying, the harsh laughter of Krath soldiers enjoying their work. "Sergeant, I am detecting life signs in the building ahead," reported one of the soldiers, a woman named Unbi, who carried the squad's sensor equipment. "Multiple Villani, possibly prisoners. Also, 6 Krath guards. We go in fast and quiet. Priority is the prisoners. Do not let any Krath call for help." They approached the building. It had been a school once. Now, it was a prison. Through the broken windows, Hana could see Villani huddled together on the floor. Children mostly. Their small blue faces wet with tears. Standing over them were Krath soldiers with weapons ready. Something hot burned in Hana's chest. She had seen many terrible things in her career, but there was something about hurting children that woke a special kind of anger inside her. "Take them down, now." The squad burst through the doors. The first 2 Krath died before they understood what was happening. The third managed to raise his weapon but was hit by 3 shots simultaneously. The fourth tried to run and made it exactly 2 steps. The last 2 grabbed children and held them as shields. They shouted threats in the Krath language, pressing weapons against small heads. Everyone froze. J1 felt his blood turn cold. He had a clear shot at one of the Krath, but if he missed, the child would die. His hands began to shake. "Lower your weapons, humans," one of the Krath said with a cruel smile, "or these creatures die." Hana slowly lowered her rifle. Her face was calm, but her eyes never left the Krath. "You are making a mistake. The only mistake was yours, coming here. No. Your mistake is thinking we will let you hurt those children." The Krath laughed. "You cannot do anything. Move, and they die." Hana smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Unbi, lights." The room plunged into darkness as Unbi cut the power. In that single moment of confusion, 2 shots rang out. When the emergency lights flickered on 3 seconds later, both Krath were on the ground. The children they had been holding stood frozen, completely unharmed. J1 stared at Hana. How did you? Training. She walked to the children and knelt down to their level. Her voice changed completely, becoming soft and gentle. You are safe now. We are here to help you. One of the children, a small girl with large dark eyes, reached out and touched Hana's face. You came, she whispered. You really came. Of course we did. The little girl began to cry. Not from fear this time. From relief. Outside, the battle continued. More human squads landed across the planet, targeting Krath positions and freeing prisoners. The Krath, confused by the destruction of their fleet, struggled to organize a response. In the capital city, Captain Tejo landed with a special team. Their mission was to reach Ambassador Lyra and establish a command center for the liberation effort. The streets near the government building were heavily guarded. Krath soldiers had built barriers and set up heavy weapons. They were expecting an attack. Tejo studied the defenses through his scope. Yuna, how many wounded do you think are inside? Yuna checked her medical sensors. Unknown. But probably many. The Krath have been using the building as a command center. Any Villani inside would be prisoners, or worse. Then we need to be careful. We cannot just blast our way in. Donghyun grunted. I could blast a path. Easily. And kill everyone inside. No. Tejo thought for a moment. The Krath expect us to attack from the front, so we go from below. The city had an old sewer system that ran beneath all the major buildings. The Villani had not used it for centuries, but the tunnels still existed. Tejo led his team into the darkness, moving by flashlight toward their target. The tunnels were narrow and wet and filled with strange smells, but they were also empty. The Krath had not thought to guard them. Deathworlder thinking, Donghyun muttered as they crawled through a particularly tight space. Who else would choose to fight in sewage? Whatever works, Tejo replied. They emerged inside the government building's basement. Above them, they could hear Krath voices and the crying of prisoners. Tejo signaled his team to spread out. Ambassador Lyra sat in what had been her office, her hands bound behind her back. A Krath officer stood over her, asking questions she refused to answer. Where are your people hiding? Tell me, and your death will be quick. Lyra said nothing. She had already accepted that she would die. At least her silence might give others time to escape. The Krath officer raised his hand to strike her. The ceiling exploded. Tejo dropped through the hole with his weapon already firing. The Krath officer fell. More humans poured in from every direction. The Krath guards tried to fight, but were overwhelmed in seconds. When the shooting stopped, Tejo walked to Ambassador Lyra and cut her bonds. Ambassador, I am Captain Tejo. Sorry we took so long. Lyra stared at him with huge, disbelieving eyes. You came. You actually came. We said we would. But your fleet. The Krath had 200 ships. Tejo smiled slightly. They have fewer now. Outside, the sounds of battle were fading. Across the planet, Krath forces were surrendering or fleeing. Without their leadership, without their fleet, they had lost their will to fight. Yuna entered the office with her medical team. She immediately began treating wounded Villani, moving with speed and precision. We need to set up medical stations throughout the city. Many of these people need immediate care. Do it, Tejo ordered. Lyra watched the humans work. These terrifying Deathworlders, these monsters that the galaxy feared, were treating her people with such gentleness. Yuna held a crying child and spoke soothing words. Soldiers shared their food with starving families. Medics worked through the night without rest. I do not understand, Lyra said quietly. Why do you care so much about strangers? Tejo considered the question. On Earth, there is an old saying, a stranger is just a friend you have not met yet. He looked out the window at the burning city. Today, you called for help. We answered. Tomorrow, maybe we will need help, and you will answer. That is how it works. That is how it should work. The Krath called you monsters. The Krath take children from their parents and laugh while doing it. I think they are confused about what a monster really is. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. For the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself to hope. The night was long and difficult. There was much work to do. But the Volani were no longer alone. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were here to help. 3 weeks had passed since the human fleet arrived at Volani Prime. The fires had stopped. The rubble was being cleared. Slowly, carefully, a broken world was beginning to heal. Ambassador Lyra stood on the steps of the government building, looking out at what remained of her capital city. Many towers still lay in ruins. Many homes were still destroyed, but for the first time in weeks, she could see her people walking the streets without fear, and beside them walked humans. Soldiers helped rebuild walls. Medics treated the wounded. Engineers fixed broken machines that the Volani had never learned to repair. Everywhere she looked, Lyra saw cooperation, friendship, hope. Captain Tejo approached her with a tablet in his hands. He looked tired. Deep shadows sat under his eyes, and his uniform was dirty from working alongside the rebuilding crews, but there was satisfaction in his face. Ambassador, I have news. The Krath Empire has officially surrendered. Their High Council sent a message this morning. They are withdrawing all forces from Volani space and agreeing to pay compensation for the damage they caused. Lyra could hardly believe what she was hearing. The Krath surrendered? They have never surrendered to anyone. They have never been defeated like this before. We destroyed 147 of their ships. Their warlord Greith is dead. Their remaining fleet is scattered and broken. Tejo paused. Also, I think they are afraid. Afraid of what? Of what happens next. If they continue fighting, more humans will come, and more, and more. We made it very clear that harming innocent people is something we take personally. Lyra shook her head in wonder. For thousands of years, the Krath had terrorized the galaxy. They had conquered world after world, and no one had been able to stop them. Now, in just 3 weeks, humans had broken their power completely. What will happen to the Krath soldiers we captured? She asked. That is up to you and your people. They are your prisoners now. Lyra thought about this. The Krath had caused so much pain. They had killed her people, destroyed her cities, taken children from their families. Part of her wanted revenge. Part of her wanted them to suffer as her people had suffered. But then she looked at the humans working in the streets below. She remembered how they had treated her people with kindness instead of cruelty. She remembered Yuna holding crying children. She remembered Tejo cutting her bonds and speaking gently instead of harshly. We will give them fair trials, she said finally. Those who committed crimes will be punished according to our laws. Those who simply followed orders will be allowed to return home. Tejo nodded with approval. That is wise. I learned something from your people, Captain. Cruelty creates more cruelty. But mercy can create something better. Oh, below them, Sergeant Hana was teaching a group of Volani children how to play a human game. She had taken off her armor and tied her hair back, and she smiled as the children laughed and ran around her. Private J1 sat nearby, sharing food with a young Volani boy whose parents had been killed in the invasion. The boy had not spoken for days after being rescued. But now he was talking quietly with J1, and sometimes he even smiled. Yuna worked in the medical tent, treating a line of patients that seemed to never end. She had slept only a few hours in the past 3 weeks, but she refused to rest while people still needed help. Your people are remarkable, Lyra said softly. The galaxy calls you monsters. They say you are dangerous, unpredictable, violent. But all I see is kindness. Tejo smiled. We can be all of those things. Dangerous, unpredictable, violent. But only toward those who deserve it. Toward the innocent. Toward those who need help. We try to be something else. What is that? Human. A communication signal beeped on Tejo's tablet. He checked it, and his expression changed. "Admiral Kang wishes to speak with both of us. He says the Galactic Council wants to make a statement." They moved inside to the communication room. The large screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Kang and several alien ambassadors. Lyra recognized them. Representatives from the Torhan Collective, the Milari Federation, and the Gorvax Union, the same species that had refused to help when her world was dying. The Torhan ambassador spoke first. His voice was smooth and political. "Ambassador Lyra, on behalf of the Council, we wish to express our relief that the situation on Valani Prime has been resolved." Lyra felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "The situation, as you call it, was resolved by humans, not by you. You watched us die and did nothing." The ambassador's scales shifted color with embarrassment. "The political situation was complicated. The Krath were powerful allies of several council members. You could not simply help people who were being murdered." Lyra stepped closer to the screen. Children were being taken from their homes. Cities were burning. "And you calculated politics." Admiral Kang spoke. "Ambassador, if I may, the Council has called this meeting to discuss the future of human and Council relations. They are concerned about our military capabilities." The Milari representative leaned forward. "Yes. Your fleet destroyed nearly 200 Krath warships. You suffered minimal losses. This level of power is concerning." "Concerning?" Tejo spoke before he could stop himself. "You are concerned that we might protect other innocent people? We are concerned that you might decide to use this power against Council species." A long silence filled the room. Then Lyra laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "I will tell you something about humans," she said. "When my world was burning, they came. They did not know us. They owed us nothing. They came because we needed help, and they could give it. That is who they are." She looked at Tejo, then back at the Council representatives. "You are afraid of the wrong species. Humans do not attack the weak. They protect them. Humans do not start wars for conquest. They fight wars for justice. The Krath should have feared them. The slavers and the tyrants should fear them. But peaceful people, kind people? We have nothing to fear from Deathworlders." The Council representatives looked uncomfortable. They had expected to negotiate, to establish limits on human power. Instead, they were being lectured by someone they had abandoned. Admiral Kang smiled slightly. "I think the ambassador has made our position clear. Humanity will continue to answer calls for help. We will continue to fight evil wherever we find it. If the Council has a problem with that, they can take it up with our fleet." The communication ended. Tejo looked at Lyra with new respect. "That was well said, Ambassador. I meant every word." She walked to the window again. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. "Captain, what happens now?" "Your fleet cannot stay here forever. We will leave a small force to help with reconstruction, and we will establish an alliance between Earth and Valani Prime. If anyone ever threatens your people again, they will face not just you, but us." Lyra felt her heart swell with emotion. After everything that had happened, after all the pain and loss, her people had found something unexpected. They had found friends. "Thank you, Captain, for everything. Thank us by rebuilding. Thank us by growing strong again. Thank us by being there when someone else needs help, the way we were there for you." That night, there was a celebration in the capital city. Humans and Valani gathered together, sharing food and music and laughter. Sergeant Hana danced with the children she had rescued. Private J1 sat with the orphan boy, telling him stories about Earth. Yuna finally allowed herself to rest, falling asleep in a chair while holding the hand of a recovering patient. Captain Tejo stood at the edge of the celebration, watching his people mix with the Valani. Ambassador Lyra joined him. "You know," she said softly, "when I sent that distress signal, I did not believe anyone would answer. I thought we would die alone. You were not alone. You never were. I know that now. She looked up at the stars, where human ships still patrolled. The galaxy is going to change, Captain. Because of what happened here, species will know that cruelty has consequences, that someone will come. That is the idea. Lyra smiled. It was her first real smile in weeks. The Deathworlders arrived with the fury of 1,000 suns, but they stayed with the gentleness of 1,000 hearts. I think that is the most human thing of all. Above them, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, other species were suffering, other worlds were burning, other children were crying for help, and somewhere, a human ship was already turning toward them, ready to answer the call, ready to bring fury and kindness in equal measure, because that was what humans did. That was what humans would always do.